Hello, and welcome to our talk, Tips to Refresh and De-Stress Your Mind and Body. I'm happy to be here today for Startup Week 2021. I am Mary Elizabeth Lenahan from Dance Express. I'm the Artistic and Executive Director of our Inclusive Dance Company.
Hi, and I am Lauren Borkowski. I'm a counselor and I have a private practice called Sound Mind Counseling and Wellness. We're going to be talking about what's stressing people out. We're going to watch a short video. We're going to talk through the types of stress, and then we're going to present some physical and mental tools for managing stress. And then we are going to share some final thoughts about stress management. So first, let's hear from a few folks about stressors and any questions they might have about managing stress.
I'm Yvonne Hanning, owner of Willow Tree Studios, a fitness community of active agers. I started my business almost a year ago because of COVID, and now here we are. My question was that as a small business owner and working out of my home, do you have any suggestions for making a transition from being at work to being at home?
I did have a question. I've noticed that the work environment, since we've been doing a lot more Zoom meetings and working from home and doing emails, more of a virtual environment, it seems like people are not as polite to each other. And I just have some concerns about how we're going to redo the work relationships once we're able to get back together.
Some things that stress me out. One is working from home during the pandemic. Before, I was obviously in the office and it was easier for my coworkers to gauge how well I was doing. Here at home, expectations are different. I like to think that I'm meeting my coworkers and my boss's expectations, but it's harder for them to gauge that while I'm at home, so that adds some stress for me. Another would obviously be the pandemic, just uncertainty of it all. Just reading the news, and it can be bothersome sometimes. That adds a lot of stress for myself. Some questions I have for stress. One is, how can I manage stress in a repetitive environment? I'm at home all the time. Another is, how can I develop good habits as well in a repetitive environment?
Whether we're at home or in the office, most of us aren't working in the field of fitness. So do you have some suggestions for people of exercises or movement breaks that people can do sitting at their desk?
Now that we've heard from some people about things that are stressing them out and questions about managing stress, let's talk a little bit about what stress is and the different types. So stress is a normal response to changes or challenges, and everyone's reaction to stress can be a little bit different, whether it's a physical reaction, an emotional reaction, or a behavioral reaction. The most common type of stress that we experience is acute stress, and that's the momentary or fleeting stress that goes away fairly quickly. There's also episodic acute stress, which is when you have those moments of stress frequently. And then there's chronic stress, which is the long-term ongoing stress from issues like socioeconomic struggles, chronic illness, or the long-term impacts of experiencing a traumatic event or a tragedy, or the combination of several of these things over a certain period of time. So getting to know the type of stress that you have is very helpful for managing it. If you're experiencing chronic stress, it's a good idea to get support from a variety of places like a doctor, a therapist, family members. But we're going to present some tips that can be really helpful for managing any type of day-to-day stress that you have. And we'll also suggest a few options at the end if you do want to go and get some further support. So Mary Elizabeth is going to start out by talking about the physical environment and some changes that we can make within our environment to help start managing stress.
Let's look at your environment. the physical environment. If you are using the computer daily, as I'm sure many of us are, you could be experiencing eye fatigue. One handy tip is to have something colorful. Would it be a poster, a painting, behind your screen, not behind you, but behind your screen, so that it's hanging up behind where you look, and you can periodically look over the computer and onto this colorful, interesting, different visual. The other would be, if there's a window in your space, to periodically look out the window, look into the far distance as far as you can, so that you're giving your eyes the chance to accommodate from far to near. Any of these little tips you can do maybe once an hour or every 20 minutes. Another one would be to actually simply stand up and stretch. Stand up and stretch whenever you have the chance. And you can give yourself a hug, and you can give yourself a squeeze, so that you are keeping your posture upright. Also, turning your head. So here you are staring at the screen, watching the other people. It's all right if you can turn your head side to side, up and down, and on diagonals each way, up one side and down the other, just to give your neck that opportunity to flow. And the last one would be breathing. At the top of the hour, if you just want to take a breath in, hold it, and take a breath out. And if you do that, say 3 times for 4 counts each, you'll find that it actually just gives you that much more of an energy boost.
Oftentimes our bodies will tell us that we're stressed out before our minds can process all of the different stressors that we have. So a really nice place to start with assessing stress is actually checking in with your body through what's called a body scan. And there's longer versions of this exercise, and there's also some shorter versions. So today I'll show you a quick body scan that you can do. You can do it a couple times or multiple times throughout your day, just to tune in and see how you're feeling and see if your body is telling you that something might be stressing you out in your environment or in your mind. So before you do a body scan, it's a great idea to do some deep breaths to help yourself slow down and tune in. So I always encourage people to take some deep belly breaths, where you're filling up your lungs to the point where your belly actually expands a bit, and then exhaling really slowly. And doing that 3, 4, 5 times to help yourself slow down and reset a little bit. So after you've taken those deep breaths, you can close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. That helps tune out outside distractions so that you can really check in with your body. So to do a body scan, we start with the top of the head and just mentally scan down to the forehead, the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. Even bringing a little smile to your mouth can help alleviate some of the tension in your face. You can scan down to your chin, your neck, your shoulders, your back, your arms, moving on all the way down to your hands, your stomach, your hips, thighs, knees, calves, all the way down to your heels, the rest of your feet, and the tip of your toes. And just notice any sensations whatsoever that come up in your body. And then when you're done with your body scan, take a few more big, deep belly breaths and slowly release them. And then ask yourself what sensations you felt in that body scan and what those sensations might be telling you. Are they a response to something that's happening in your life? Are you feeling physically ill? just get curious about what those sensations are telling you, because if you're feeling something in your body, chances are there's other things going on. So it's a great place to start when you're assessing stress.
Other physical changes that you can do to your environment to help yourself with feeling more alert when you're working is to actually sit on a TheraBall. TheraBalls are sized to different people's heights, so I would advise you to get the proper size for yourself. But when you sit on a TheraBall, it alerts your system. It's called dynamic sitting. And for people who are anxious, it sometimes can calm you down. And for people who are sleepy, it can alert you. Another seating option, if you have a standard chair and you don't have an ergonomic chair, would be a Goclay stretch sit cushion. This woman, Esther Goclay, has manufactured these, and you put them at the back of your chair, situate them so that you have a little bit of something to lean on, and it gives a stretch to the spaces in between your vertebrae. So that's the Goclay cushion. Now, many of these things I'm talking about are in the handout that goes with this video, so you can look these links up for yourself. The reason I'm talking about posture, or the reason I'm talking about these seating options, is because when you are seated so much all the time, it interferes with your capacity to breathe. It can collapse your organs. The Washington Post some years back did a poster, and this is also in the PDF. But you can see what happens is that people get kind of kyphotic in their upper back. They crunch in their lower back and kind of lose their natural curve. Sometimes if you're sitting with your feet not firmly on the ground, not seated 90, 90, 90, again, it's not helpful to your health and wellness. And also how you have your hands on the keyboard. This would encourage carpal tunnel syndrome. Another idea is how your hands are on the keyboard and how you're holding your head up. So this is something you can look at online. So one of you asked for exercises that we could possibly do since we're sitting all day and we're not fitness exercise people. A very simple one is the head turns, which I mentioned earlier, but also it's a one to deter the kyphosis that happens in your upper back. Some people call it tack neck, but it is something that with our telephones and our computers, we tend to be going forward and forward and forward more. The weight of your head stretches the fascia in your neck and leaves you with a little bit of a disability as far as how you're holding yourself up. So to avoid that, you can do this exercise periodically. Just lightly push back on your chin so that your head goes back, but we don't want your head to go forward. We're just trying to get your head go back. 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to put your arms up out in like a Y position. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, keeping your head straight. Don't let your head go moving with your arms. It's only the arms. Then down to a W. W is where your arms would look like they're in a W. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're squeezing different muscles in your back. And then the L, which some people call I got no money or hitchhiker. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the T. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's essential that you're keeping your head on top of your back, on your top of your spine. Go through those exercises briefly. We start with our head. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Another exercise, and this you could do just with your pencil or your pen, is to just walk up, keep all your fingers engaged on the pen or the pencil, and walk your fingers up and down, and up and down, just repeatedly, okay? Now, I have a large copper rod that I have used in Eurythmy. It's quite large, and I don't expect many of you would have that. So with this exercise, you tap your fingers lightly on the top and on the bottom, and on the top and on the bottom, and on the top and on the bottom. And you could do that over and over again. Well, just to warm up your hands a little bit, because you know, using your hands on the keyboard really does tend to cramp them some. If you don't have a copper rod, you might have a wooden dowel, and you might only have a short wooden dowel, but you could do the same thing with it. You can do the over and under and over and under. Another exercise with the rod, I'll do one with the dowel and one with the rod, is to actually toss it and catch it. Toss it and catch it. Toss it and catch it. And that's an alerting exercise. You can walk up and down with the rod too if you want, if you have that at home. Then I'm going to use the smaller pencils first, working from the, holding on with all of your fingers. You're going to go out, keeping your hands on the pencil, and you can make these progressively larger. And breathe as you do it. And that's a very nice, healthy exercise that could help you while you're sitting. And of course, you might want to turn your screen off so that people don't see you doing that. But then again, a lot of times we're in these meetings and you are not on the screen. So now if we were going to do it with the dowel or with the copper rod, it's a lot larger. So then that's even more alerting. So you're going to still do the same thing. All fingers are engaged on the rod, and around and around and around and around. And you probably can see that they are going a slightly different way. And I think that has to do with the weight, the difference in the weight from the wood and the copper. So that's another very lovely alerting exercise to do when you are stuck at the computer. So I've given you all the exercises. Another tip, if you are sitting at the computer and you're trying to think and a little bit distracted, there's beeswax that it's made from bees. And there's actually different colors of beeswax. And some schools use this for their students to model. You can see this is a little fishy. This is a little hat, little cap. And this is kind of a twisted beeswax. But you can hold it in your hand and it warms to the warmth of your hand. And then to kind of reduce your anxiety or for meditative purposes, you kind of just move, just warm it and model it, warm it and model it. And ideally it won't get on your computer and damage anything. With many of these tips that Lauren and I are giving you, we're saying, oh, this is just a few minutes to do this, just a few minutes to do that. And you might find out that with everybody telling you just to do this for a few minutes and that for a few minutes, that you don't ever get to what it is that you really want to do today. So Lauren will address a little bit about the tips for your time management.
A lot of people have said that one big source of stress this past year has been having to work from home while also tending to family responsibilities and getting out of their normal routine when they're primarily staying home every day. So a good way to help reset your routine or get into more of a routine if you don't have one is to first do an audit of your time for a couple of days and keep a log of how you're spending your time. Then sit down and reflect on it and see if there's any areas that you would like to see change. So ask yourself, like, how are you actually spending your time based on this log? What would it take to spend your time even a little bit more meaningfully? And what would the benefits be of using your time a little bit more wisely? You can also ask yourself, well, what would the consequences be of continuing your current pattern and not changing the way that you're managing your time? Once you assess how you would like your time to look, it's really helpful to actually get a planner or use an app and schedule in specific slots for the tasks that you would like to get done in your day. So if you would like to start work at a specific time and end work at a specific time, write that into your schedule. You can write in specific times for exercise or breaks or lunch, and just choose what's most important to you and try and stick on that schedule for a little while. And it will likely take more than one attempt to change your routine, but keep trying and see what works for you. Another thing that's really important to do is to reflect on what your most important tasks are. So oftentimes people procrastinate, and that can increase their stress level because they have some weight on their shoulders, knowing that they have a task that they really need to get done and they haven't done it yet. And as deadlines approach or as more time passes, the stress or anxiety associated with not having that thing done usually ends up growing. So reflect on what your most important tasks are and try and schedule those tasks early on in the day. No matter what type of change you're trying to make to your routine right now, just make sure to remember that change happens in small steps and the repetition of those small steps. So really be patient with yourself when you're trying to change something, and don't try and make drastic changes all at once. It's more effective if you plan and make small changes over an extended period of time. Another thing that has been stressful for people is that they are more isolated this year. And it's really hard to change something when you are home alone. It's more effective if you have a support network and you're checking in with people on a daily basis. So see if there's 5 different people that you can check in with every week, whether it's friends, family members, or coworkers, and talk about your stressors, talk about the things that you're trying to change, and see if you can find a friend to help keep you accountable for the changes you're making. And you can also help keep them accountable for changes that they're making and support each other in the process. We're really not designed to do things alone or be alone for extended periods of time. And while alone time is certainly helpful, we really are wired to be social, and we do need a support network when we're trying to make a change. When people are facing high levels of stress, negative thinking and self-defeating thoughts are really normal. So some examples are all or nothing thinking and ignoring the gray area, filtering out the positives and dwelling on the negative situations, overgeneralizing, jumping to conclusions before you have enough facts or information, catastrophizing and thinking that one bad thing has ruined everything, taking things personally or feeling like something is your fault when it may not be your fault, having the fallacy of control, thinking that you have control over more things than you really do. It's important to focus in on what we can realistically control, and by focusing in on that, we have the ability to make positive changes. Other things are, the fallacy of fairness and thinking that, a situation must be fair, or thinking that we should do something when we really don't want to do something. So if you're thinking, well, I should do this or I should do that, it's really important to think about what you actually want to do and what the pros and cons would be of doing something, and seeing who it benefits and what the purpose is of doing that thing. Emotional reasoning can be really common in situations of stress. So it's important to tune into your emotions, but it's also really important to assess facts and data and the reality of situations before coming to a conclusion. Another thing that happens when people are really stressed out is trying to change other people or trying to control other people. We have to be mindful about what we can realistically control, and that is something that has to do with ourselves and not with other people. And so if you're finding yourself wanting to control others, think about instead having a conversation about your needs and your wants, and then listening to what their needs and their wants are. So take time to reflect on your thoughts. Spend some time journaling about them or drawing about them or talking about them. And then if you're finding yourself experiencing these negative thought patterns, try and challenge them and reframe them in a way that's more neutral or positive. So when you make a habit of reframing negative thoughts, you can actually strengthen neural networks in your brain and change your thought patterns. And again, like with every change, these must be small and incremental, and you have to be really patient with them. But it's super important to take time to reflect on your mental space and process your thoughts, because in times of stress, we can all fall into patterns of thinking that lead to behaviors and feelings that don't make us feel as good as we would like to feel. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and thank you to Mary Elizabeth and everybody that asked questions. If you're interested in doing any counseling or having any psychoeducation for your organization or any other mental health type service, feel free to reach out. My contact information is in our PDF. And thanks again for watching.
Thank you to Nick Armstrong and the Startup Week staff for inviting us to make a presentation. Thank you, Lauren, for being willing to work with me in this. Thank you, Yvonne, and the other questioners who helped to make this panel a little more interesting. Please feel free to contact me should you need to, if you have any questions, or if you want to refer someone to our dance company. We would love to have you. Thank you.